We moved to Palmer for a fresh start. The neighborhood was perfect. Quiet streets, friendly faces, and kids playing outside. Our new house was everything we wanted, and our neighbors seemed nice enough. Except for one. Mr. John lived alone in the house across the street. He was an older man with a stern face and gray hair. We rarely saw him during the day. His blinds were always drawn, and his lights only came on at night. It was strange, but we didn't think much of it at first. One evening, while unpacking, I heard strange noises coming from its house. It sounded like scraping and muffled voices. I brushed it off, figuring it was just an old house making noises. But then the sounds became more frequent, and curiosity got the better of me. "Have you noticed anything weird about Mr. John?" I asked my husband, Mike. "He's probably just a private person," Mike replied, though he seemed uneasy too. One night, while I was taking out the trash, I saw Mr. John in his window, staring directly at our house. It sent chills down my spine. I hurried back inside and locked the door. Mr. John was watching me. I told Mike, my voice shaking, "Maybe we should check it out," he said, his expression serious. A few nights later, we decided to investigate. Mike and I waited until dark, then snuck over to Mr. John's house. We peeked through a gap in the curtains and saw him in the basement, surrounded by surveillance equipment. There were monitors showing live feeds of our house, our yard, and even inside our home. Newspaper clippings of local crimes covered the walls. "What is he doing?" I whispered, horrified. "We need to get out of here," Mike said, pulling me back. We rushed home, our minds racing. The realization that Mr. John had been watching us was terrifying. We called the police, but when they arrived, Mr. John denied everything. They found nothing in his basement. The equipment and clippings were gone. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every noise made me jump. Around midnight, the doorbell rang. Mike and I exchanged worried glances before he went to answer it. Standing on our porch was Mr. John, holding a small box. "What do you want?" Mike demanded. "I need to talk to you," Mr. John said, his voice calm but menacing. "About what?" I asked, stepping closer to Mike. "I've been watching you because I need to protect you," he said, opening the box to reveal a stack of photographs. They were all of us, taken without our knowledge. "There are dangerous people in this neighborhood." "Get away from us," Mike said, slamming the door. We called the police again, but by the time they arrived, Mr. John was back in his house. They warned him to stay away from us, but it did little to ease our fears. We installed security cameras and tried to go back to normal. But the feeling of being watched never left us. A few days later, we noticed Mr. John's house was eerily quiet. No lights, no sounds. The police checked on him and found the basement empty. Mr. John had vanished without a trace. To this day, I still wonder what his true intentions were. Was he really trying to protect us, or was his obsession something more sinister? The quiet streets of Palmer now held a dark secret that haunted our every step. It started as just another day at college. I was rushing to my morning class, coffee in hand, when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Good morning, Emma. Running late for class again." I frowned and looked around, half expecting to see a friend playing a prank. But there was no one I recognized. I ignored the message and continued with my day. By lunchtime, I had forgotten about it. A few days later, another message arrived. "How was your coffee date with Alex? He seemed really interested in you." This one made me stop in my tracks. My coffee date with Alex had been completely private. We hadn't even posted about it on social media. I showed the message to my friend Sarah. "That's creepy," she said, her eyes wide. "Do you think someone's spying on you?" "It's probably just a stupid prank," I said, trying to sound confident, but a chill ran down my spine. The messages kept coming, each one more intrusive than the last. They mentioned private conversations I had with my roommates, detailed my class schedule, and even knew what I wore each day. I changed my routine, hoping to throw off whoever was watching me. But it didn't help. "Why are you ignoring me, Emma?" One text read. "You can't escape me." I decided to confide in my friends. We gathered in my dorm room, our faces serious. "This has gone too far," Sarah said, looking around at the others. "We need to find out who this is. Do you know anyone who might be doing this?" Jake, another friend, asked. I shook my head. No one comes to mind. I mean, not someone who would do something like this. Jake suggested we trace the number. He had a friend in the computer science department who owed him a favor. It took a few days, but we finally got a lead. The number was traced back to a fellow student named Mark. He was in one of my classes, but we had never really spoken. Why would he do this? I asked, feeling a mix of fear and confusion. "We need to confront him," Sarah said, determination in her voice. The next day, we waited for Mark outside of class. When he appeared, I stepped forward, my heart pounding. "Mark, can we talk?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He looked surprised but nodded. We moved to a quiet corner, and I showed him the messages. "Are you the one sending these?" I demanded. His face turned pale, and he stammered, "I didn't mean to scare you, Emma. I like you, and I didn't know how to tell you. Following me, spying on me. That's not how you show you like someone." I was trembling with anger. Mark admitted to everything. He had hacked into my phone, my social media, even installed cameras in my dorm. The depth of his obsession was terrifying. We reported him to the college authorities, and he was expelled and handed over to the police. Even now, I can't shake the feeling of being watched. The experience left me paranoid, always looking over my shoulder. The messages may have stopped, but the fear lingers, a constant reminder of how quickly someone can invade your life and shatter your sense of security. We were so excited for our weekend getaway. We found a secluded cabin on 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐿, nestled in the mountains, perfect for escaping the city. The photos online showed a charming little place with beautiful views. It seemed ideal. When we arrived, the first thing we noticed was how isolated it was. No neighbors, no cell service. Just the two of us and the dense forest surrounding the cabin. The air was fresh and crisp, and the silence was both calming and eerie. The hosts, an elderly couple named Margaret and Henry, greeted us warmly. They were friendly, maybe a little too friendly. Margaret insisted on giving us a tour, pointing out the best hiking trails and local attractions. "Don't wander too far off the paths," she warned with a strange intensity. "It can be dangerous out here." Henry showed us around the cabin. It was quaint but had a few oddities. Some doors were locked, and he seemed evasive when we asked about them. "Just storage," he said quickly. "Nothing to worry about." We settled in, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling. But that night, things took a turn for the worse. We found small cameras hidden in the living room and bedroom. They were cleverly concealed, almost undetectable. My heart raced as I showed them to my boyfriend, Mark. "Why would they have cameras here?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Maybe for security," Mark suggested, but he didn't sound convinced. We decided to confront Margaret and Henry the next day. But that night, we discovered something even more disturbing. In a drawer, hidden under some old magazines, were photos of us. Photos taken while we were sleeping. They showed us in the bed, vulnerable and unaware. Some were close-ups of our faces, our eyes closed in peaceful slumber. "We need to leave now," Mark said, his face pale. We packed our bags in a rush, our fear mounting with every minute. As we were about to leave, Margaret appeared at the door. "Going somewhere?" she asked, her eyes glinting with something sinister. "We're leaving now," Mark said firmly. "Oh, but you just got here," she said, stepping closer. Is something wrong? Why do you have cameras in the cabin? I demanded. Margaret's friendly facade cracked. It's for your own safety, she said, but her voice was cold. We pushed past her and ran to the car. As we sped down the dirt road, I glanced back to see Henry standing in the doorway, watching us leave with a grim expression. We drove straight to the nearest town and called the police. They took our report seriously, and a few days later, we received a call. The police had searched the cabin and found more hidden cameras, as well as a collection of photos of other guests. They'd been doing this for years, the officer said. We've had reports of voyeurism and other unsettling behavior, but nothing concrete until now. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, even after we returned home. The memory of those photos haunted me. Our weekend getaway had turned into a nightmare, and the charming cabin in the mountains would forever be tainted by the sinister secrets it held.